So, Brigette, thanks for joining me. I just wanted to have a quick chat with you to understand a little bit about your background, some challenges that you had to overcome, how you overcame them, and then what it is that you're doing now that's really amazing, that's inspirational, and other people really need to know about. So we'll start off by just give me a little bit of background as to sort of what got us to be here today.
Okay. So I just want to, I'll start by telling you about something that happened to me this week, which was quite beautiful, that I didn't actually think I would have been able to experience 6 years ago. So it was Wednesday of this week and my alarm went off at 5 a.m. and it was pitch black. And I got up and went and turned my alarm off and put my swimming togs on and grabbed my goggles and my drink bottle and hopped into the car and went down to join my swimming squad. And it was that beautiful, warm, balmy morning, and I dived into the water and I just felt, yes, that I'm doing that, because 6 years ago, I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to train again with my triathlons. And I guess that was because I was the sort of person that was go, go, go all the time and busy, busy, busy. And when a health challenge came up, I used to just say, fix me. And eventually that fix me stopped working for me. So the first occasion that I had a really serious health challenge was actually when I was 35. And I'm just going to put myself back there. So I was 35 and I had just had my first child, and his name's Zach, and he was 6 months old. And I was running a very small business and doing, you know, when you've got a small business, you do everything in that business. So life was really busy, but life was good. The only downside was that I used to get this terrible pain in my neck, and it was so sore that I remember just not even being able to move my head from side to side or look down at poor Zach. It was like looking down like this. And it used to get to the point where I used to be all teary about it, that it was in so much pain. And my husband, Ross, said to me, can you go and get that sorted out? And I went off and I actually went and had an MRI. And you know something's not quite right when you're driving away from the MRI and your doctor rings and says, can you pull over? And can you go into this first chemist you can find and get blood thinning tablets? And so I do that, and he says, look, they've sent your results from your MRI off to this Professor K, who's a neurosurgeon. But look, if it's probably bad, I'd have to go see him immediately. And then it was about 10 o'clock that night, and we get this call from his secretary saying, could I come in at 7 the next morning? And he delivers this result, and he said, look, you have a tumour on your on the base of your brain, on your C2, and it was the size of a golf ball. And initially I went into the shock, and it was, oh my God, you know, Zach's so little. And I remember lying in bed that night and wrote out on this little scrap of paper my will. And he said, but you're in luck, we're going to operate in the next day or so. So it was this massive operation, and they did the operation and my parents came down, and then they said to me, look, we need you to rest for this next 6 weeks. And, you know, by this stage, it was all about, well, you know, how quickly can I get back to do my invoicing? And I said, I can do this in 2 weeks. I can be back out there and working again in 2 weeks. And sure enough, I was, you know, I pushed through it, and I wasn't looking at that point in time and what I could change in my life. It was just all about fix me so I can get back to being busy. 5 years goes by, and I'm now in overdrive. I've now got 3 kids. So I had a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I had a business now that was on St Kilda Road, and I had a nanny, a full-time live-in nanny for the children, so I was never really there. I was training for this ultra-long triathlon twice a day, but again, grumbling about actually having to get out and to do the training. And it was, I remember it being, so I was 40 now, and I remember it was winter, and I'd hopped into the shower, and the shower was warm, and you know, you go to soap yourself up, and I remember feeling under my arm, and I could feel this lump that was, it was the size of a pea, and I just thought, something's not right. I don't know if you've had that feeling, and I'm sure you have, in your body when you just know something's not right. Mm-hmm. And I then went, I booked in to see the doctor. It did take another month for me to do that, to go to the doctor. And the results came back that I had grade 3 breast cancer, and it was in my lymph nodes. And all I could say, and I remember the words, and they came back to me and said, it's going to be a long journey. And I think for me, that's when hell really started. So the answer was, to fix me, was we started with 6 months of chemotherapy to see if they could reduce the size of the tumour. And I remember by the second round of chemo that I couldn't ride my bike up the hill anymore. And how I was thinking, God, if only I could ride my bike up the hill again, you know. So all these things that I'd had were now being taken away from me. And then I started to lose my hair, and I thought, look, that's okay, I can wear some wigs. And then my eyebrows and my eyelashes went. And as a woman, I realized that often we have a lot of identity attached to the way that we look. And then the chemo started to affect my decision-making ability, that at work, and I couldn't make a decision with my business. And, you know, I ran this company, and at times I didn't even feel like I wanted to be able to get out of bed. So my business started to go down the toilet. And life was getting pretty crappy. And then the big round test to see, you know, if that was it, and I could go on my merry way. And the results came back that the chemo actually hadn't worked. And at that point in time, I was just devastated. I remember going into, I've got a room down the back, and I started to some things like meditation. And I remember going down there and just lying down. And it was almost like I describe it like letting go. And I remember saying out loud, and I'm not religious, but it was like I was saying to spirit, to God, what do I need to change in my life to get well? And just lying there, you know, I didn't have any answers, and the fix me thing wasn't working anymore. And that's when things started to come into my awareness.
Yeah. Interesting when things start coming into your awareness and you've been through some really tough times and you've had some really difficult experiences. And how is it instinct now? Is it desperation? What is it that happened for you specifically that moved you from, okay, this hasn't worked now. Other people fixing me doesn't seem to be the solution. But how did the light bulb go off in your head that you needed to do something else? Because it sounds like a bit of a light bulb moment now that I know what you do.
Yeah. So I think it's when you have everything stripped away from you and coming to that realization that if I don't change, I mightn't be here. So, but also then having that moment where I really felt like I was in touch with my inner self and asked that question, what needs to change in my life so that I can, you know, essentially thrive, which is where I'm at today. And just being open to what came in. So for instance, you know, with my meditations, I had started to meditate, but I used to see them as a chore. So I would go down and spend my 20 minutes and go, I've ticked that box off. But just being more open and mindful to breathing and enjoying that experience. And suddenly this wave of gratitude came over me after that point, to be more grateful for little things that I had. Like, actually, my children were at home and I was spending this time with them, and how great was that? And that in my life there were certain areas that I could then see that weren't making me happy, like the work that I did in the city. Although that gave us an income, it made me really quite stressed, and I was never at home or present. And that awareness, and so all of these little events then led me just to spend more time in looking at then what did I need to change. So into my awareness came courses that I could do, and I started to. So I went off to Gawler and did their 10-day retreat, and learned about, because I recognized that I needed to get more nourishing foods into me. And for me, another part that became evident, and I guess how it all became evident as well, was spending more time in that quiet space. And when I say meditating, I sit there and set a timer and set an intent, and then just see what comes. Or it might be I visualize my body in a well state, and then what needs to shift to be that. So spending more quiet moments to be able to then find what I was needing.
Yeah. So in those quiet moments, it sounds like you had a lot of opportunity to get some realizations. And it's one thing to get a realization, but then you've acted on it and you've started your healing, you're recovering, and it's continuing, and you're getting healthier and better every day. And it's quite a few years down the track now. And then you've learnt so many things, right? And then you've decided that what you're going to do is other people need to know about this. So how do you make it now from your learning? How do you share that so other people can benefit? Because I get it that when you're sharing what you've learned and you're recovering and you're getting better and you're healing, there's some kind of amazing thing, and it makes you feel even better when you have the opportunity to help others. So what did you do then?
Okay, so I then got this bee in my bonnet because I could see so many people in the world were like me, going through these chronic diseases, you know, chronic diseases being diabetes, cancer, heart attacks. So these sort of chronic diseases, and we're all just like me saying, just fix me. And so many people were then, their quality of their life was then suffering. You know, that the statistics today is that 1 in 2 men will get cancer and 1 in 3 women will get cancer in their lifetime. And how could I inspire and teach people to thrive, you know, and hopefully avoid chronic disease, or if they were in a situation where they did have a chronic disease, how could they add things into their lifestyle to make them happy? So that's kind of how my journey started, from this, I'm really angry about this, and how do I make an impact upon the world and help people? So so along the way, I learned many things about how to stay healthy, and I created this program called Focus on Living School. And Focus on Living School takes different parts of or looks at different parts of your life, and gets you to ask questions about how that what is that working for you, or is that not working? So for instance, there's a nutrition module which talks about adding more healing foods in, or adding foods in that are helping to add vitamins into your system, which is good for us all, right? And there's another part in there that looks at how meditation can help us with our health and our healing. And I've done this program with different experts. So people that are at that stage where they're saying, can I think and watch it? And there's also an opportunity that if they want to be coached along that way, they can be as well. So it's something that they can do, and then that those areas that they feel like they really need to concentrate on at that point in time, they can go further in and then you know, go and actually physically meet that expert, or go to some meditation classes, or they can you know, like another part for me was I looked at some of my relationships, and there was a relationship that I had, a family relationship, that wasn't really working as well as what I wanted it to, and it stemmed back from something that had happened in my teens. But I remembered that event in my teens like it was yesterday, and I realized that because I was wanting to do it all right and make sure that all areas of my life I was getting to a stage where it was helping me to be healthy. So I went back and released that. And when I say release that, I guess went back and looked at forgiving that and saying, well, look, that's in the past and let's move forward. And that relationship now is amazing.
Brigette, what's some of the feedback that you've had from the participants who have already done the course as we begin to wrap up?
Okay. One participant has said it was great because it's a one-stop shop to be able to get you to look at what else you can add into your life, and deals with all the different areas. And So it was a really, really great starting point. Other participants tend to gravitate to what they need now. And I guess with the program, it's a lifetime program that you can go back and do. He was a little bit similar to me in that he had run a computing company and then had a cancer diagnosis. And he said for him what it did was he was so much more grateful for his relationships with people, and he was looking at ways in which that he could change what he did to something else. So it was this wake-up call to say, you know, how am I living my life and how can I live it differently? And his experience was that, you know, he went and did things like he went on a trip and he deepened those connections with those people that mattered.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. Now, how can people find out more about Focus on Living? Where can they go? What website?
Okay. So the website is focusonliving.com.au, and or if you just want to read, like, you can subscribe to, I write a blog every 2 weeks, and those blogs are really about how you can thrive, and I interview different experts on there. Some of them I write myself, but yeah, it's totally free to sign up. You can also, with Focus on Living School, there's a couple of modules or exercises in there that you can go and you can do for free, just to see if it's something that might appeal to you first.
Okay, awesome. So for everyone that's watching, they can go to focusonliving.com, and there they .com.au.
Yeah.
Okay, focusonliving.com.au.
Yes.
And they can subscribe to the email, which is free, and they can do some free programs on there, or some little exercises that they don't have to pay for.
Yes.
And then they can get in touch with you if they feel the need to find out more and ask more questions.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Brigette, come to that point. It's about your journey.
I think we might be out of time, Bill.